The harder you try to improve, the less likely you'll succeed long term. This isn't just counterintuitive, it's backed by neuroscience. Our brains are designed to conserve energy, not expend it. Most self improvement fails because it fights against our natural wiring. We try to force ourselves into new behaviors through willpower, a limited resource that inevitably depletes. This creates an unsustainable cycle of effort followed by failure, leading to the familiar pattern of starting strong but quickly returning to old habits. When we rely purely on motivation, we're setting ourselves up for eventual disappointment. Consider your phone. It updates automatically overnight without you thinking about it. Meanwhile, you're trying to transform your life through sheer force of will. Imagine if your phone required the same effort you're demanding of yourself. True progress comes from aligning with your brain's natural tendencies rather than fighting against them. When improvement feels effortless, it becomes inevitable. This isn't about taking shortcuts. It's about designing smarter pathways. The most successful improvers aren't the most disciplined. They're the most strategic. We've all experienced starting a new habit with enthusiasm only to abandon it weeks later. This isn't personal failure. It's a system failure. When improvement requires constant willpower, it's not sustainable regardless of your determination. Every productivity guru tells you to work harder. But what if that's precisely the problem? What if effort itself is the obstacle? Think about it. The most significant improvements in human history weren't from working harder. They came from designing better systems. Farmers didn't grow more food by working more hours. They invented better farming tools. Progress doesn't come from pushing harder against resistance. It comes from eliminating resistance entirely. Chapter 1. Natural Flow Philosophy. Think of water. It doesn't struggle to flow downhill. It simply follows the path of least resistance. What if your improvement could work the same way? Natural flow philosophy is about identifying where life is already moving in your favor. Instead of swimming upstream against your natural tendencies, find where the current is already moving in your desired direction. This isn't about being lazy. It's about being strategic with your energy. It's about maximizing return on effort. Consider how easily you scroll social media versus how hard it is to read that business book. The difference isn't importance, it's the amount of resistance. By designing paths of least resistance toward your goals, you make improvement inevitable rather than exhausting. The key is to work with your psychology instead of against it. When you align improvement with your natural tendencies, progress happens almost automatically. This alignment is what distinguishes sustainable change from temporary fixes. We all know that feeling of flow, when time seems to stop and progress happens effortlessly. That's not accidental. It's achievable by design. Flow states aren't random gifts of inspiration. They're reproducible conditions you can deliberately create. Ever notice how we'll spend hours debating the perfect productivity system, but can't find 5 minutes to actually use it? That's because we're focused on the wrong part of the equation. The natural flow approach isn't about finding magical shortcuts. It's about removing unnecessary obstacles. Think of it as clearing debris from a river rather than trying to make the water flow faster. Most improvement efforts focus on pushing harder, when they should be focusing on removing resistance. When improvement feels like pushing a boulder uphill, you're probably going against your natural flow. Chapter 2. Mental Decluttering. Your mind is like a browser with too many tabs open. It's constantly cycling through thoughts, draining your mental bandwidth. Mental decluttering isn't about adding meditation, it's about closing unnecessary tabs. Rumination, overthinking, and second guessing are cognitive energy drains that make improvement feel effortful. By identifying and eliminating these mental loops, you free up enormous mental resources that can be redirected toward effortless progress. Most people underestimate how much their mental clutter is costing them in terms of available energy and focus. Think about how much brain power you waste wondering if you should have said something differently in that meeting 3 weeks ago. That energy could be powering your actual goals. The solution isn't more effort, it's less mental noise. Decision fatigue alone can deplete your willpower before you even start your improvement efforts. Each decision you make throughout the day drains your mental battery a little more. By eliminating unnecessary decisions, you preserve that energy for what truly matters. We've all experienced that mental clarity after a vacation. Suddenly, solutions to problems appear without effort. That's not coincidence. It's mental decluttering in action. Your brain works best when it isn't overloaded with cognitive tasks and background processes. Your brain is like that friend who keeps bringing up embarrassing stories from high school. Maybe it's time for some new material? Mental decluttering techniques like brain dumps, worry scheduling, and thought challenging can dramatically reduce your cognitive load. Even simple practices like keeping a dedicated notebook for random thoughts can prevent them from circling repeatedly in your mind. The key is creating systems that capture these thoughts rather than letting them consume your mental bandwidth. Chapter 3: The Systems Advantage. Goals are for amateurs, systems are for professionals. A goal is a target you aim at occasionally. A system is an environment that produces results automatically. Most people focus on setting ambitious goals, but underestimate the power of small, consistent systems. When you build systems that make improvement automatic, you remove the need for continual decision-making and willpower depletion. The power of a good system is that it continues working even when your motivation fluctuates. Consider how effortlessly your teeth get brushed every day. That's not because you have amazing dental hygiene willpower. It's because you've built an unquestioned system. By designing similar systems for your improvement areas, you create results that compound over time with minimal ongoing effort. When improvement happens by default, rather than by deliberate effort, it becomes sustainable. The goal isn't to force yourself to improve. It's to make improvement inevitable through carefully designed systems. We've all set New Year's resolutions that fizzled by February. The difference between temporary change and permanent transformation isn't motivation, it's systems. No one consistently brushes their teeth through sheer willpower. It's a system so ingrained it feels strange not to do it. Your future self is built by the systems you create today, not by your momentary bursts of motivation. Screenshot that. When designing systems, focus on removing friction rather than adding motivation. Make the desired behavior the path of least resistance. Place your running shoes by the door. Put healthy snacks at eye level. Create a distraction-free workspace. Small environmental tweaks can dramatically change your behavior patterns without requiring constant willpower. Chapter 4: Environment as Autopilot. Your environment is making dozens of decisions for you every day without you realizing it. The question isn't whether your environment is controlling your behavior, it's whether it's doing so by design or by default. The most successful improvers don't rely on better choices. They design environments where better choices happen automatically. This approach bypasses the need for constant willpower and decision-making. It's about making improvement the default option rather than the effortful alternative. If the cookies are visible on your counter, you'll eat more cookies. If the fruit is visible, you'll eat more fruit. It's not about being a better person. It's about designing a better environment. By strategically designing your physical and digital environments, you create invisible forces that naturally pull you toward improvement, rather than requiring you to push yourself there. Your surroundings are constantly cueing certain behaviors and discouraging others. When you understand this influence, you can deliberately design it to your advantage. We've all experienced how a clean, organized workspace suddenly makes work feel easier. That's your environment doing the heavy lifting for your brain. The external organization reduces the need for mental organization, freeing up cognitive resources for actual productive work. People spend thousands on motivational seminars, but won't spend an afternoon reorganizing their home for automatic improvement. That's like buying expensive running shoes, but never clearing a path to jog on. Your digital environment is just as influential as your physical one. Notification settings, screen time limits, app layouts, all of these environmental factors dramatically impact your behavior without requiring conscious effort. By designing these elements intentionally, you create an invisible support system for your improvement goals. Chapter 5: Strategic Rest as Acceleration. The counterintuitive truth. Sometimes the fastest way forward is to stop moving. Strategic rest isn't a productivity obstacle. It's a productivity multiplier. Most improvement efforts fail because they don't account for the recovery phase. Just as muscles grow during rest, not during exercise, your capacity for improvement expands during well-designed recovery periods, not during constant effort. The restoration phase is where integration happens, where your brain connects dots and consolidates learning. Consider how often your best ideas come in the shower or on a walk. That's not coincidence. It's your brain's natural problem-solving mode activated during rest. By deliberately incorporating strategic rest, you leverage your brain's natural tendency to solve problems and integrate learning during downtime. This isn't about being lazy. It's about being biologically intelligent. Your brain has different modes of operation, and constant focus mode actually prevents certain types of problem solving and pattern recognition. We've all experienced pushing through fatigue only to make costly mistakes that take longer to fix than the rest would have taken. Strategic rest isn't laziness. It's leveraging biology. It's recognizing that your cognitive resources are finite and require regular renewal. Ever notice how we glorify exhaustion, but then wonder why we make poor decisions? That's like praising a car for running on empty and then being surprised when it breaks down. Strategic rest takes many forms: micro breaks during focused work, proper sleep hygiene, deliberate mind-wandering time, nature exposure, and even scheduled periods of complete disconnection. The key is intentionality, designing rest periods rather than collapsing into them. When rest is strategic rather than reactive, it becomes a powerful tool for acceleration. And hey, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Also, let me know your thoughts on what I just shared. Oh, and there's more. I've just started a Patreon to help support these videos and connect with you more directly. Check out the link in the description if you'd like to join. Chapter 6: The Minimal Effective Dose. More isn't better. It's just more. The minimal effective dose is the smallest input needed to produce your desired outcome. Everything beyond that is wasted energy. Most improvement efforts fail because they demand too much change too quickly. By identifying the smallest intervention that creates your desired result, you dramatically increase your odds of sustainable progress. This approach eliminates unnecessary effort while maximizing results. The very definition of efficiency. Just 5 minutes of meditation daily creates measurable brain changes. A single push-up done consistently beats an elaborate workout plan you abandon. Finding your minimal effective dose allows you to achieve maximum results with minimum effort. The very definition of effortless improvement. This isn't about doing less for the sake of laziness. It's about doing exactly what's necessary and nothing more. It's strategic minimalism applied to personal development. We've all abandoned ambitious improvement plans that were simply too complicated to maintain. The minimal effective dose turns too much into just enough. It makes sustainable what would otherwise be overwhelming. The goal isn't to do as much as possible. It's to get the result you want with minimal investment. We'll spend an hour watching workout videos, but complain we don't have time for a 10-minute walk. That's not a time problem. It's a complexity problem. The minimal effective dose varies across different domains. For fitness, it might be just 20 minutes of high-intensity interval training twice weekly. For language learning, it could be 15 minutes of daily practice. For meditation, even just 2 minutes daily creates meaningful change. The key is identifying that critical threshold where results begin and not overcomplicating beyond that point. Chapter 7. Joy-Based Productivity. The activities that energize you are signposts pointing toward your natural path of least resistance. When improvement energizes rather than depletes you, it becomes self-sustaining. Most improvement efforts fail because they feel like punishment rather than progress. Joy-based productivity flips this dynamic by focusing on improvements that generate energy rather than consume it. When activities energize you, you don't need willpower to continue them. They pull you forward naturally. Notice how easily you can spend hours on activities you enjoy versus how quickly you deplete when forcing yourself through dreaded tasks. That energy difference is your clue to effortless improvement. By aligning your improvement efforts with activities that naturally energize you, you create a self-reinforcing cycle where progress fuels more progress. This creates an upward spiral of energy and accomplishment rather than the downward spiral of depletion and resistance. The goal is to find where your natural interests intersect with your improvement areas. We've all experienced being so engaged in an activity that time seems to disappear. That flow state is your body's way of showing you where your effortless zone lies. It's a biological signal of alignment between your interests and your activities, a signpost towards sustainable improvement. We'll force ourselves to follow someone else's morning routine and then wonder why it feels like torture. That's like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small and wondering why walking hurts. Joy-based productivity doesn't mean only doing what feels immediately pleasurable. Rather, it means designing your improvement path to align with your natural energizers. If reading energizes you, find books related to your improvement area. If social connection motivates you, create accountability partnerships. If competition drives you, gamify your improvement efforts. Chapter 8. Consistency over intensity. A river cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Improvement works the same way. Consistency beats intensity every time. Most improvement efforts fail because they rely on unsustainable bursts of intense effort, rather than manageable, consistent actions. By reducing the intensity to increase consistency, you create the conditions for inevitable progress. This approach acknowledges human limitations and works within them rather than fighting against them. 5 minutes of daily practice for a year outperforms 5 hours of practice once a month. It's not the individual sessions, but the unbroken chain that creates transformation. Consistency creates compound interest on your improvement efforts, where small actions accumulate into remarkable results over time. When improvement becomes a non-negotiable part of your routine, no matter how small, the compounding effect begins to work in your favor. The key is making the consistent action so small that missing it feels ridiculous. We've all seen people make dramatic transformations that seem to happen overnight. What you don't see are the consistent small actions that preceded that visible change. Transformation is rarely dramatic in real time. It becomes apparent only in retrospect, after consistent small efforts have accumulated. Our culture celebrates the person working out intensely for 2 hours, but ignores the person who hasn't missed a 10-minute daily walk in 3 years. We're confusing impressive with effective. Consistency requires designing for the minimum viable day. What's the smallest version of your habit that you can maintain even when sick, tired, or traveling? By establishing this foundation of consistency, you create a platform upon which you can occasionally build more intense efforts when energy and circumstances allow. Chapter 9. The compounding effect. Small improvements compound like interest in a bank account. Just 1% better each day makes you 37 times better in a year. This isn't hyperbole, it's mathematics. Most improvement efforts fail because they focus on immediate results rather than compounding systems. By understanding how small changes accumulate over time, you can design improvement systems that deliver exponential rather than linear results. The magic isn't in the individual improvements, but in their cumulative effect over time. Consider how a tiny adjustment to your sleep schedule, just 15 minutes earlier each night, can compound into dramatically higher energy and productivity over months. It's not the size of the change, but the consistency of the compound. The compounding effect turns tiny, manageable improvements into remarkable transformations without requiring Herculean effort. This is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary results, not through revolutionary actions, but through evolutionary consistency. Small hinges swing big doors when given enough time. We've all been frustrated by seemingly insignificant progress that feels too small to matter. Yet those small changes, consistently applied, are precisely what create lasting transformation. The invisible phase of improvement is often the most crucial, where foundations are being built but results aren't yet visible. We get impatient when we don't see immediate results. But then 5 years pass, and we wish we'd started those small changes back then. It's like we can't do the math on our own future. The compounding effect works in reverse too. Small negative habits compound into significant problems over time. This understanding lets you be strategic about which small habits to eliminate and which to cultivate. The key is recognizing that nothing is neutral. Every habit is either working for or against your future self through the power of compounding. Chapter 10. Your effortless implementation. Let's bring everything together into 3 simple steps you can implement today. Not next week, not when you feel ready, today. Because effortless improvement starts with effortless beginning. First, identify one area where you're working too hard for too little result. Look for resistance. Where do you find yourself procrastinating or avoiding? That resistance is a clue that your current approach is fighting against your natural tendencies rather than working with them. Next, design a minimum effective intervention that aligns with your natural energy. What's the smallest action that would move you forward in this area? How could you make this action more naturally energizing for your specific preferences and tendencies? Remember, sustainability trumps intensity. Finally, create an environment that makes that intervention automatic rather than effortful. How can you design your physical and digital spaces to make this new behavior the path of least resistance? What triggers can you establish to initiate this behavior without requiring conscious decision? Remember that reading books on swimming doesn't make you a swimmer. The implementation gap is where most improvement efforts fail to take hold. By focusing on immediate, manageable implementation, you bridge the gap between knowledge and action, where real transformation occurs. Don't fall into the trap of endless planning and research. Start with imperfect action today. The feedback from real implementation will teach you more than any theoretical preparation. We've all consumed countless pieces of content about improvement without implementing the insights. The difference between knowledge and transformation isn't more information. It's implementation. Knowledge without application creates the illusion of progress without the reality of change. "I'll start tomorrow" is the most expensive phrase in the language of improvement. It costs you all the compounding you could have accumulated. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Your future self is built by systems, not by struggle. Design those systems wisely and watch as improvement happens effortlessly. This isn't about avoiding effort entirely. It's about directing effort strategically toward designing environments and systems rather than forcing daily behaviors. Remember, water doesn't struggle to flow downhill. By aligning with your natural tendencies and removing unnecessary resistance, you can make improvement just as effortless. The path of least resistance isn't lazy. It's brilliant when designed intentionally. Hey, productive people, I'm Peter, and I'm super excited to share something special with you. If you've been enjoying my content here, you're going to love what I've got over on my YouTube membership. By becoming a member, you'll unlock all the wonderful perks below. Get access to exclusive illustrations, full transcript release, polls for future videos, plus some fun surprises along the way. But it's more than just extra content. It's a way for you to directly support what I do. Your membership helps me keep creating, exploring new ideas, and bringing you even better content. So, if you're ready to take your support to the next level and be part of the inner circle, hit that join button below. I can't wait to see you there.